Hey, You-est You listeners, it's Julie. I'm here with you today with a phenomenal guest. This woman is beyond a badass. She has become a dear friend and somebody you're going to just be so inspired by and empowered by. I am thrilled to introduce you to Charlena Smith. Charlena is the creator and founder of Optio. She is a personality expert and an empowerer of humans. Oh, I love that. I love that. Once upon a time, Charlena almost died. And really, that's true. She almost died. She had a debilitating traumatic disease during pregnancy and a legit near-death experience. When she got back into the swing of things, she made a decision to find purposeful and fulfilling work. Although it was exciting to do things like plan Beyonce's 21st birthday party and co-plan the death and dying conference with the Dalai Lama, Charlena knew intentionally slowing down a bit and finding the spot where she could make the most impact was what she needed to do. The creation of Optio has become the framework of Charlena's purpose. Using both demographic and psychographic markers, Optio matches members that holistically expand each other's perspectives, creating guided accountability partners that yield a 97% success rate on goals. So cool. Between being a mama to two amazing grade school kiddos and a wife to a legit NASA rocket scientist, awesome guy, Charlena is committed to helping women entrepreneurs see the power in vulnerability, understand the malleability of their personalities, and build partnerships and communities that stretch all of us towards our biggest accomplishments. I'm so honored to have you here, Charlena. You are such an inspiration, lady. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Julie. I am so excited to do this. I really, really am.
Yay. Okay, first, before I ask about your You-est You, did you plan Beyonce's 21st birthday party?
I did. Oh my gosh. It's so funny because it's like, number one, it dates me.
That's okay. That's okay.
And number two, everybody's always like, what? And I do not know Beyonce personally, but I did plan her 21st birthday. It was all Austin Powers themed.
Oh my gosh.
I was an event planner, an international event planner in a past life, and it was amazing.
Wow.
But yes, her team was amazing. Her people, I know her people. I don't actually know Beyonce, but I did plan her birthday party.
That is so cool. I mean, I love the Dalai Lama to either of them.
Yeah, it was within 6 months. Can you imagine the second?
Wow.
Let's talk about death and dying. Let's go to Austin Powers. Like,
wow. Yeah, that's like two extremes, but I guess it's
Mhm.
all about living your best life, which, you know, for you, I know you really, one of the things I just love about you is how on fire you are about being purposeful and living life, you know, with purpose, with meaning, like really taking that on.
Absolutely. It is, it has become my life mission. It really has.
So I had the pleasure for those listening. This was such a cool experience. Charlena and I met officially at the Best Year Ever Blueprint Conference in San Diego. And then I got to fly back with her amazing husband, Scott, and got like the side story of what happened to you. But I think, you know, we talk about being your You-est You, being your most authentic self. And just would love for people listening to kind of get a sense of what you dealt with. Because when I heard secondhand the story, I mean, first of all, I had tears rolling down my eyes. People on the plane were probably like, what's going on? But I was like, my God, this story needs to get out there. Like, it's incredible what happened.
Yeah. So I'll try to make it as short as I can because I know your podcast isn't like 12 hours long. But basically, I had what's called hyperemesis when I was pregnant. And a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's extreme morning sickness. And when I say extreme, I mean like you are sick all the time, no matter what. So with my first baby, we had Keegan, my son, my older son, right after we got back from our honeymoon. I was already at quote unquote wedding weight, if you will. And then I actually lost 75 pounds while I was pregnant because it was so bad. I was so sick. It went undiagnosed for a really long time. And then, that we made it through the pregnancy. I was in and out of the hospital for months at a time with him. And our doctor told us that it would not happen again. That if we wanted to have kids, if we wanted a bigger family, we should have kids now. And that would be our best course of action. So we were like, oh, okay. And my thought was, well, how do you best way to gain weight? Get pregnant, have another baby. And unfortunately, it did not go that way. It was the exact, I had hyperemesis again, times 10. And
oh God,
it was pretty awful. I mean, like, I lost even more weight during the pregnancy. And with Keegan, my first son, it went away at 6 weeks. But with my second, Colby, at, almost a year after he was born, I was still losing weight. I was incredibly underweight. I was starving. I was sick constantly. I was fed. I was on TPN, which is total perinatal nutrition. So just fed through basically a line that goes right to your heart. And nobody had any reason why this was happening. Nobody could tell us what was going on. So doctor after doctor after doctor basically told us that I was crazy, that I had body dysmorphia, and that I was doing it to myself. And it's so funny because I'm so glad you know Scott, because he was truly my champion in like the weakest moments when I started questioning, okay, well, what if I am crazy? Like, what do we do about that? Like, no matter what, this is manifesting physically, and I don't care what that, if it's a psychological thing, that's just as powerful as if it's a physical thing. So we need to fix it. So I was on tons of prescriptions, and finally I actually went to a doctor and threw up in his office, and I threw up bile, threw up something that wasn't physically able. You can't psych yourself into throwing this stuff up. So he was like, no, we're doing an exploratory surgery tomorrow. But at this point, my son was about 11 months old, I guess, 10 months old maybe. And they went in for an exploratory surgery, found a kink in my intestines that had gone missing the entire time. So food, water, everything was literally hitting it and coming right back up. So I was starving to death. It's essentially what was happening. And it had been happening for 2 years. And they tried to put me, they were like, great, we can put you back together. Everything's going to be fine. But I was so sick. You imagine you're starving for so long. And I was so sick, depleted of all nutrients, completely had no protein, had no iron, had no reserves of any kind. So I couldn't be put together. They couldn't sew me back up. They couldn't, there was no healing process that could happen because I wasn't well enough to heal. So I was in the ICU for almost 6 months. I literally had a hole. Like I would look down at my chest, and I had a hole from my chest to my hip bones, if you can imagine, with a great big sponge and a wound vac and things like that. And I ended up getting something called ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome, because of the wound in my abdomen. Now, the statistics, this is where it gets really scary for families and things like that I was awake this whole time and intubated. But the statistics for this particular degree of ARDS are 0% survival. Like nobody makes it. But you only get this kind of ARDS if you are, say, shot in the stomach while on a tour in the Middle East.
Yeah.
You're not in a cushy ICU where you can get all of the care that you need. So the statistics were wrong and misleading.
Right.
And then my lungs proceeded to collapse 5 times. All my other organs started to fail, and the doctors basically gave up, and they were like, I'm sorry, but everybody said goodbye, I think 3 times. I was read my final rites twice. But Scott, my husband, did not give up, and he would not let the doctors give up.
Can I pause you for 1 second?
Yes.
Before I'm like, hold on, I have to ask you. I'm just curious.
Such a long story.
No. Like, what was going on for you? How did you, because look, something I'm imagining in you said, I'm fighting, I'm staying with this. Like when they read you your not your Bill of Rights.
Final rights.
Final rights. I'm like, not the Bill of Rights. When they read you your final rights, when they what did you say to yourself? How did you handle that?
Right. So it's, number one, I have to acknowledge you for even asking me that question. Most people just want like the facts of like what happened, and I don't get to answer this very often, and it's actually very liberating. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. So in the beginning, what was so hard is that I couldn't communicate because I was intubated. So I couldn't speak. I was kind of tied down to hospital bed because I would try to pull out the tube, and very stubborn person that I am. And it was the level of vulnerability that you achieve in that situation is unlike anything that I can explain. You have zero control over anything. In the beginning, it was terrible. I am a control freak and a half. Like I couldn't handle it. And I was also, because I thought that I had a psychological issue, I was on enough Xanax to tank an elephant. Okay. Wow. And then I had to go off everything. And I had what are they called? The illusions, can't remember the name. So I actually pictured Big Bird. Hallucinations. Thank you so much. And they were extremely vivid. Like, I mean, you have to imagine I have a baby at home. Like that's my life. And I'm picturing like Sesame Street coming through the hospital. Like the doctors were morphing in and out. It was just so crazy. And I felt like I had completely lost my mind at like that point. And the only thing that held me grounded was my husband and my parents being there, that they were still there. Like if I would never let them leave. And I never let anyone else in because I wasn't a very vulnerable person. I wasn't able to access those parts of my emotions before that. And then after, midway through, you just kind of have to give up. You're like, okay, like I clearly can't do anything. It's been like 3 months. You guys are lying about the calendar. I see you backtrack. You're writing on the calendar on the wall and I'm getting upset about it. So you're lying about the calendar. And then you just give in. And then you just let the universe take the course that it's going to take. And what's so interesting, it's almost this is the shame game that you play, right? That you feel shame about things that you shouldn't feel shame about.
Yeah.
So nurses and doctors would come in continuously and tell me that I had to fight for my kids, that you have to fight because you have these small babies at home and they need you. And I literally, when I could finally like scribble on a notepad, I was like, do not mention my children again.
Yeah.
Like, just don't mention. I don't want you to bring it up because I'm not fighting for them at this point. I'm fighting for me.
Yeah.
I have to stay here. Stop telling me to fight for them because that's not enough.
Yeah.
Like I have to fight harder than that. I have to dig deeper than that.
Wow.
And it has to be for me. It can't be for somebody else. Yeah. And that was a really defining point when I, made that transition. And that's when I started to heal.
Wow. Woo, I got chills. I mean, this to me, I would imagine has carried over even in today is this idea, especially as a mother, as a caretaker, like what you just said, it sort of reminds me on a very small scale, the oxygen mask.
Absolutely.
Like, it sounds like you got this so firsthand on a plate to you. It was like, you got like, you matter. It's for you to be here.
Yes. And it's so funny because up until that point, I really would have thought that was an incredibly selfish statement. That any mother, you should put I was raised, my mother is amazing. She always put me first. And so I just thought that's what I'm supposed to do. And then I have these beautiful children and I should be putting them first. But then when you're truly in a position where you are fighting, fighting and fighting and fighting with no promise and with no expectation of survival, it comes down to you. It comes down to you pulling through and I had to will myself to continue to breathe. Like I'm on this oxygen tank and it's breathing for me. And the doctors would always come in and be like, you need to relax. You need to relax. And I was I literally cannot. Anybody in my family, if they dare tell me now to relax, it's like, oh, there's hell to pay.
Yeah. There's no talking about relaxing.
Such a trigger word.
Yeah. Don't say that around Charlena. No. Yeah.
So, but over and over again. And I was like, it's not about relaxing. It's about fighting. Like I need to fight. I don't think you understand what's happening right now. You want me to relax and like go softly into the night. And that is not what I'm about right now. Like I am not relaxing. Yeah. So it was an interesting journey mentally through all of that.
Did you see the shift where you started to get better? Do you correlate it to when you mentally decided? It sounds like that's what you're saying when you got it's for you. I'm curious if your health increased then, because that would be my assumption.
Yes, absolutely. And it was this this incredible low point. And I had been read my final rites twice. Like they tried to read them first. And I was like, no, like I kept on trying to say no, that you can't, I don't receive that. Like I'm not welcome to receive that. And at one point I had to sign over my rights to Scott that he could make all of my medical decisions and any decisions pertaining to my life. And I remember doing that and thinking, okay, we're in this together. We're going to do this. So then it moved on to like a we mentality. And it was just like my partner and I. And then even then it got to the point that it was like, no, this is just me. This is just me. And I have to pull this out. And it was definitely right then. And I made decisions. I made a decision, a choice to live for me, no matter what that looked like. And I was going to be the best version of whatever that could be.
Mm.
So I recognized that I might not ever talk again, that I might not ever walk again. And that was okay. I just had to keep living.
Wow.
So that moment I started to get better, and I made a complete recovery I'm still supposed to be into it. Like I have a trach, I was supposed to be on all these things forever. And one by one, we got rid of them because I decided to live for myself.
Wow. Woo, drop the mic, everyone. That is so freaking powerful. You'd said earlier, like control freak, you were stubborn. And I'm hearing what's so awesome is the control, the stubborn, the perseverance, like that actually was used to your benefit, to help.
Oh, yeah.
You.
Yeah. I think the universe gives us really interesting challenges sometimes. Like I am so hard-headed, and I really am. And I thought that I had my life together. Like I thought I was the definition of what successful should be, based on the blueprint that I was raised with. So I, and this is crazy right now, I'm going to tell you. And I'm so fortunate. Number one, I want to tell you, I'm so lucky that this happened when I was so young, because I feel like I have the perspective of like a 107-year-old lady.
Wow.
But I still get to live that life again.
Yeah.
So I was the COO of a growing marketing company on the East Coast, a very, very fast growing marketing company, a full-time professor at Towson University. And I was pursuing my PhD full-time, all at the same time. And I had 2 babies under 2 and a husband, and I was incredibly sick. So I would be like pitching board meetings with a TPN, like the food bag that is being pumped into my heart in a coach bag on my shoulder.
Oh my God.
That's insane. You want to talk about having your priorities all messed up? But I thought that's what I was supposed to be doing. And everyone told me how fantastic I looked because I weighed like 95 pounds on a 5'10" frame. And it was not healthy. And it's so amazing that's what society tells us. That's what the world around us tells us. And what a tremendous gift to be able to see how messed up that is.
Yeah.
And be able to take that forward and actually bring it into your life in a way that you can affect that kind of change with other people so that they see it before it's too late too.
Oh, wow. I'm so touched by what you said, and I can only imagine. I mean, that's like a whole other area we could get into around body image. And it's like, that's so sad. I mean, for you to be on, knocking on death's door and people be telling you that you look good, that's a whole other topic.
I know.
That's a whole other thing. What it sounds like, though, I love what you said. It's like you feel like you're a 107-year-old woman living in a young woman's experience, which gives you wisdom way beyond your years. I mean, really, that's
absolutely
great. Yeah.
It's the things when I was coming back from that with the gift that I was given. The analogy about is your life full, right? And they start with like a jar full of rocks, and then they put in smaller rocks, and then sand, and then water. I've always loved that analogy. Before this whole thing came out, I thought that I had the big rocks in my jar. The most amazing gift is having that jar completely dumped out for you. Just completely dumped out. Because I couldn't say, it was really hard for me to say no to things. Like if you're going to pay for me to get my PhD, I have to say yes. If my kids need a PTA president, I have to say yes. If my company needs me to do a presentation that requires me working until 3 a.m., I have to say yes. And that's what I felt like all these shoulds, like I should do. And having that jar completely dumped out and all of those expectations washed away, I was truly able to put the big rocks back in first. And the first one was me. Wow. So that made a huge difference.
This is really, really, really powerful wisdom. And anyone listening, I'm just, hopefully no one has to go through this, but to get it on such a massive scale. I mean, what I'm hearing is, I believe in this. I've written about this. It's counterculture still a little bit, but that not only are you worthy and you matter, but like you have to invest and take care and give love and feed and nourish yourself first. You've got to, and you're worth it, and you're worth that. And I actually think whole other conversation, but with kids, I know I'm a big believer. They need parents that do that.
Mm-hmm. And we see the difference in them. Like I am so thankful that this happened when they were so young. I mean, in some ways it's hard because they still suffer some of the repercussions of it all. That's another story for another day. They both have a little bit of PTSD going on. But we are such a close family, and we know, and they know
Yeah.
that we have to take care of ourselves first. And they know about advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
And they've learned all these things through watching us and how family advocates for each other as well. So it's been really amazing lessons for all of us.
Charlena, before we get in, because I have so many questions for you about what you're doing now and your purpose, but I am curious, I think anyone listening, like now you've made it through, how is your health today? Is there any side effects? Like what does your You-est You look like today in the health realm?
Yeah, so I have made a complete recovery. It's so funny. Every time I have to go get my lungs scanned, like every 6 months, just because of all of the scarring and things like that. But initially, when I first made it through everything, my doctor said, okay, I cannot believe that I'm saying this, but you are cleared to do everything except for fly and scuba dive.
Wow.
And I was like, what? And meanwhile, flying I was an international event planner. Like that was a huge part of my life.
Wow.
And I love traveling more than anything on the planet. So my dear husband, for a gift, actually plotted a trip around the world without ever having to hit the air. Like it was a combination of train, boat, all sorts of things, road trips. It was the most amazing gift ever. And he and the kids presented it with me. And it was so sweet. But then about a year and a half ago, right before Best Year Ever, I was cleared to fly. And the first place that I went was to see Hal at Best Year Ever. And I was like, I need a new blueprint. I need a new one.
Wow.
So really, there's no restrictions. Scuba diving is still on the fence. So we'll see. And that's a thing that we used to do a ton. It was like my thing. But I mean, like, how incredible is that? So I still, we practice, I run and chase my kids. We played baseball and soccer in the yard every day. It's just normal life. It's wonderful.
Oh my gosh. And what the gift I hear also, sometimes, especially with young kids, I would find some days like, oh my God, I'm going to watch that video again. I got to pass the ball again. Like it would get a little old, but it sounds like what you got is the gift of anything, even what would be thought of as mundane is not. It's a gift.
Yes, it is. Now that is not to say that they don't sometimes drive me crazy.
Yeah, that is. Thank you for the.
I'm like, it doesn't matter how much perspective you have. Sometimes it's going to drive you crazy.
Yeah, that's going to happen. Exactly. So I'm curious to hear a little bit about Optio, and I know about you and what you're up to around this whole idea of guided accountability. I want to talk to you about it. What's so interesting to me is when you were telling me your story about when things shifted was when you first of all got that you want to live for you, but it also sounded like, my gosh, that is guided accountability to have your husband as your partner. Like that's the beginning. I don't know if that's how it stemmed for you, but tell us about what this whole world of guided accountability, how you got into it, what you guys are up to. I know accountability has changed my life in many ways. Would love to hear more.
So yeah, it's this merger of like all these stories, right? You have this traumatic pregnancy story, and you have this amazing family story, and you have all these things, and guided accountability is just what it sounds like. So it's holding yourself accountable, and then you are partnered with a person who guides you through that experience. And Optio, because rocket scientist husband and all the algorithms, I was really good at matching people to do this. And we I have degrees in psychology and sociology and all of these other things. And it just came second nature to me to be able to bridge those gaps. And he was like, how do you do that every time? And we started working through it and testing and doing, one version, alpha version, beta version, all this stuff. And then we finally found the algorithm that clicked. And it is a way to bring two people that are very different together, not as best friends, but as people that are naturally gifted in the ways that bring out the best in each other, which is totally different. And what spurred it from me is that if I had a guided accountability partner before all this happened, I don't know that I would have had to go through that experience. I think somebody could have called me out and said, girl, what are your values? Wait, let's go back to let's go back to step one, where we started on the first day, where you created an affirmation and declared who you want to be in this world. What of these things are filling that and what are not? Because you need to drop some of these balls. You have way too many in the air. And I didn't have that. I just kept on doing and doing and doing and doing. And like I had family that was telling me that I was crazy and that I was doing too much, but I wasn't listening to them because they're family and they have to love me anyway.
Right.
So
true.
Yeah, so that's where the framework came from. And then we started putting people together, and it began with refugees. I started a nonprofit marketing company, and it began with Syrian refugees coming into the Baltimore port. And we were pairing them with U.S. women. And this, again, ignorance, so much ignorance when you don't know things. My expectation was that the U.S. women would pour into the Syrians and just kind of welcome them in. And then we started getting just open the floodgates with American women telling us how fulfilling of an experience it was and how grateful they were to have been paired. And we thought, wait a minute, is this like a thing that we can take and match people and then on a broader spectrum, and we can have these deeper conversations across cultural barriers, across religious barriers, across race barriers. And sure enough, it is. So that is what really sparked Optio to take off and really fueled my passion for it. It's a bridge maker. It's a bridge builder for communities that don't normally talk and have these difficult conversations. It allows them to do so in a very safe space.
That is incredible. I love this concept for so many reasons. And I even think like, we have conflicts all over the world. Obviously, where different countries and communities and religions have stories and anger and hatred and like how this could be such a great way to break and shake that up. This is really powerful. So you guys, you created this this platform and business, and is it right now? Do people from all over the world? Like, how does it work? Is there a not profiling, but like with their strengths, or say more?
Absolutely. Yeah. So our algorithm is based on a couple of different factors. One, we take the wisdom from the Enneagram, if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
We love the Enneagram. I mean, you talk about, it's just, there's so much wisdom from pre-biblical and biblical times that not in a religious sense, just in a people have known this forever sense. Like, why do we keep on questioning this data that we have? So we use the Enneagram, but then we bring in the science of the Big Five, which is a huge part of just how your brain, the parts of your brain that are activated at different times. Okay. And then we use strength finders, which is, totally helpful in the sense that we take your strengths and your weaknesses into consideration, because you build a team based on strengths and you can pretty much eliminate weaknesses. That has been incredibly helpful. And then we also use the Four Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. We work with her. Yeah, I love her. So that is what motivates you. Like, are you motivated externally? Are you motivated internally? What is actually going to get you to your goal? Because we want to meet that with your accountability partner. We want to match you with somebody who's going to bring that out in you. So those all get wound up into the algorithm, and then we spit out a profile and we take that's the psychographic part. Then we take the demographic part, which is, what country are you in? What is your time zone? What is your cultural experience? Your religion, your race, all of these things. Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? And those are factors that we match closely at first. And then slowly but surely we start to separate you as you go into different cycles, because you realize that what joins you is not the things that you have in common on the surface. It's your humanity. Yeah. The humanity underneath of it is what joins you. It's what makes you the same as the woman sitting across from you. And that has been all of the difference.
This is so cool. This is really fascinating. Can we do the quickest overview? I'm thinking for people that are listening, I do know some of these, but like the quick overview of the Enneagram, the Big Five, just so people listening can like check it out themselves, check you guys out, get a sense of it.
Sure. Okay. So the Enneagram is, it's exactly what it sounds. It's the Enneagram shape, and it breaks down 9 personality types based on, if you are an achiever, you're like, super, that's so funny, because when I say that, my husband's an achiever, and of course he is. He refused to lose, could not lose my life because that would mean he didn't win.
Right. Right. I understand that.
I totally benefited from that equation.
Yeah, you did.
But even down to, you have people like the challenger, the person who just is,
yes,
it's very different sometimes. Like if you want to look at two extreme examples of political figures that represent both of these, and I'll use males since we use females, but Martin Luther King Jr. is a challenger, and Donald Trump is a challenger. Now, politically, they're very different, very, very different in the ideals that they hold, but their execution and their why is similar. And if you know that, and then you join those two people together to have a conversation based on their humanity, not on their differences, you can actually affect change. So that's the Enneagram. The Big Five is a scientific profile that is based on exactly what lights up in your brain when you think about certain things. And it's very much more science-based. It's very much more, I would say more medical in that sense of like the actual science behind it. It's not quite as woo. We like to joke and say that Optio is like one woo. We're not woo-woo, we're woo.
One woo. It's like sci woo.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Strength Finders is a really, really popular personality assessment that corporations use across the world.
Yep.
It is, it identifies key strengths in your area, what you are naturally gifted at, what you were, it just comes naturally to you. And then it also highlights what maybe does not come so naturally to you that you have to work harder at.
Yeah.
And then the 4 tendencies is Gretchen Rubin she just put this out last year.
Yeah, I think about a year ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So she did a ton of research on just what motivates people. So you have people that are internally motivated, like I say I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I lose 20 pounds because I said so.
Right.
Those people are amazing. It's a small percentage of the population. And you have people that are externally motivated. So they need somebody to tell them to do it and check in with them on a regular basis. And then you might have a rebel who, if you tell them to do something, they're specifically not going to do it just because you told them to. Right. So it's all of these different personality types kind of wrapped into one to give you this personality assessment of where you are. And one thing that we do very, very differently is we look at personality almost like something you're wearing or someone you're wearing, like you're on the red carpet, right? And everybody's like, who are you wearing? Who are you wearing? And it's like Versace. I don't know very many designers.
Right. Versace.
I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it's more like that. Like every season, you could be wearing somebody a little bit different. And the concept traditionally has been that you're hardwired. Your personality is hardwired somehow. And I am living proof that that is not true because my personality now is very different than the personality I had going into my pregnancy. Yeah. So if that can change for me, why can't it change for other people? And it's just, why pigeonhole yourself? Like we're humans and we are capable of so much love, so much compassion, so much amazing work can be done when we look at our strengths and when we step into who we are instead of limiting ourselves by it.
Oh gosh, Charlena, you're so talking my language. This is awesome. I just got this idea or thought for you. It's like you went through 3 births. You had your two sons and then you birthed yourself again. It's almost like you kind of like, geez, 3 and 2, man, you really went through the ringer to get to where you are. But like could just hear it. Like you've got such perspective and wisdom. This is very cool. And I love the idea. I mean, I know, I share openly, for example, having struggled with food addiction and being part of a 12-step community where you have mentors, sponsors, like accountability, it works. Now that's a little bit different when you're in that kind of situation, but I'll tell you, I mean, this to me is one of the most important things you can have is somebody who's going to hold you to the accountability and having it guided. I get it because that's where you start to feel like I can do whatever I want to do and change whatever I want to change.
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that you say that because when we were building this community, we realized that there wasn't something like the 12-step community for the rest of us.
Right.
Right. It was sad. Like all of the people that I admired and looked up to had gone through this 12-step process. Yeah. And all they could do was talk about how amazing it was and the different person they came out on the other side. And so I started to go to meetings and just saying at the beginning, like, hey, I'm just like, is it okay if I just like step
Right.
in
Observe.
and, yeah. And they were like, it was an entirely different world where people just took off
Wow.
their armor when they walked
Yeah.
in the door. And
Yeah.
I was like, holy shit, how do I make this happen? Like, how do I
Yeah.
bring this
Yeah.
to us, to everybody else? How do you make the world a safe space like that?
Yeah.
And I think you do it one conversation at a time. You can't do it in groups. You can't do it by siloing or putting people in boxes and by gender and, sex and race and religion. If you keep everyone in those separate boxes, you're never going to have advanced conversations. You're never going to actually get to the root of any of the problems.
Right.
So that one conversation at a time, that difficult conversation that requires vulnerability and growth, that is how you're going to get there.
Oh, amen. Wow. This is like brilliant. And so people that want to find you or learn more about Optio and just all things that you're doing, where would they find you? Can you share
myoptio.org.
myoptio.org. Awesome. And we'll have that in the show notes as well. So everyone listening, if you're driving, I always say, like, please don't write that right now.
Yeah. No, my gosh. I have so many feelings about texting and driving.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, I am not always the best, but I'm working on that one. That is ending.
Yes. My kids get on anybody in the car. So they're like the little, texting police.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My daughter. Yep. She would do that. She'd be right there with them. So myoptio.org. I love this so much. Lastly, before we wrap up, Charlene, I know that just going back to this horrendous experience, which does sound like the silver lining literally is, that whole new way of looking at life. I know that you were saying earlier, before we start, we were just chatting a little bit, that you've been kind of using your experience to help change government and the laws and just maybe just share for a minute. I think it's so inspiring.
Absolutely.
How are you using this to like change our healthcare system and awareness and country?
So many changes. It's so hard. It's so interesting because I looked at, when I was in school, I was told that I should be a politician or an attorney, a lawyer, because I was really good at arguing my case. And I never wanted to do it because I just didn't like it. And then in my youth, I was very much an activist. I've always been very much on the front lines of human rights and things like that. But I saw very quickly that politicians don't actually have a ton of power. Like not as much as you think they do. Yeah. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of people that are making that happen underneath of them. Yeah. So, this past about 2 weeks ago, I got to go with Mom Congress. It's this group of women that have all had unique birth experiences, and they are lobbying for mothers' maternal rights. And it's so interesting because it's a bipartisan issue. I mean, nobody hates mommies and babies. I mean, like,
right.
It's not on the surface.
Right.
And we went to Congress and we passed all of this whole package. It was an omnibus package of bills. We jokingly called it the momnibus,
oh my God, that's
and taking this whole thing. And it went amazingly well. And the reason that I needed to go was because they needed a non-political story. They needed a real person who's experienced real trauma and has not been heard. So many times if it's the patriarchy, if it's the healthcare system, if it's whatever it is, a lot of times women's voices aren't heard. We're not listened to. We're caring for everyone else, but we're not putting our own oxygen mask on first. Yeah. Right? So the healthcare system needs to step in and do something to help with that. Doctors need to talk to each other. So some of the packages that we passed were for United Healthcare, just kind of like linked coverage so that an OB can't tell you that it's a psych problem and the psych person tells you that it's actually a gastro problem, and they're not all talking. Now they actually have to communicate with one another, and insurance has to cover it.
Wow. Ooh, I'm clapping.
I know. It's huge. And what's amazing is all these women have been doing this work for years, and I just got to step in and tell a story to kind of put the nail in the coffin. I mean, what an honor and a privilege to be able to use the story in that way. If nothing else, it was worth it for that.
Girl, you're on fire. I love this. You are so living on purpose, with purpose. Like, I mean, it's just, obviously we're so thankful you're here and that you lived. And that was the first thing, and getting that you're worthy and worth it and important to live for yourself. I love that message. All of us, like, we're all worthy. We're all worthy just because we are. And there needs to be no other reason other than you deserve to live because you deserve to live for yourself. I love that. And now the way you're using this, both in connecting people in a guided accountability through Optio, but also in what you're doing for the country and the world. And this is, you're awesome, girl. No, I just want to be like, isn't she amazing, everyone? This is like why one of the reasons I adore you and wanted to share your story. And thank you. I love this metamorphosis too of the, going through and being able to be vulnerable and share. And just thank you for being so candid and transparent about everything here. You're awesome, Charlena.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be. It's so funny. My pre-life was, we call it Charlena 1.0, always looked perfect on social media, always looked perfect in interviews. And now Charlena 2.0 is so much more relaxed and like, oh yeah, my life is crazy. It's okay. I dropped all the balls today. It's all good. I never would have said that as Charlena 1.0.
Wow.
So it is truly an honor to be given the opportunity to tell the story and a platform like yours, Julie. You're doing amazing work.
Well, thank you.